I'm Sarah and you're watching Acid Burn Say It, and today I'm going to talk about my February wrap up. So these are the books that I read in February. I apologise, Artemis is toddling about, so if you hear little background noises, it's more than likely her toddling about with her little claws. So let's get started. In February I read 9 books and 1 short story, and the short story was only like 30 pages, so I'm not sure if I'm going to count it to my total, but yes. The first book that I read in February was recommended. One of the booktubers had put as their best books of 2022, and that is Thank You for Listening by Julia Wheldon. And this book I gave 4 stars to, and I enjoyed, and I think it's meant to be listened to as an audiobook. I listened to it as an audiobook because the author herself is a narrator for audiobooks, and she herself has done quite a lot of the Taylor Jenkins Reid audiobooks, and I think they are re-recording Taylor Jenkins Reid's books at the moment with her. So this isn't her first book. However, I was quite impressed because she is an audiobook narrator herself, and the book itself is set in the audiobook world. This book is about Swanee, who happens to be one-eyed. She is a one-eyed book narrator. She started off in romance and didn't like the genre. But they use pseudonyms? And so she moved away from that genre into a different genre. I love that at one point in the book they explain the difference between romance and women's fiction, because I didn't realise they were meant to have a happy ending with the romances. And romance is basically erotica. Yes. And there was a bit more sex in this book than I thought there was going to be. So yes, I did speed through a little bit of that. But because she wrote the book and then narrated it herself on the audiobook, I felt like she wrote characters that had weird accents so she could play about with it and she could show her strength and so show who she really was. But anyway, and she gets called back into romance by the author who helped start her out, had died, and they found these lost tapes. I think it was lost tapes. And they wanted her to do it with another male narrator who was very, very big. I can't remember his name. But anyway, so she ends up going back into the romance field to do this one last thing, because she is having to pay for her grandmother who is going into memory care. And so Swanee is given a huge percentage of the money that will be made from these romance audiobooks. I found it very emotional, especially as she dealt with her grandmother and dealt with other aspects. This book did make me cry and I really enjoyed it. I think it's a great book to listen to as an audiobook. And yes, I really thoroughly enjoyed it. Oh, one of the things that they were talking about was that robots will take over doing audiobooks, and I hadn't heard that, but I guess that is the next progression. She talks about this and it sort of threw me. I didn't even think that would be a thing, but I guess eventually it will be. So the second book that I read in February was Who Am I by Mel C. Mel C is a solo artist herself, a solo female artist, but she is also a member of the Spice Girls. And in this, she talks about her life growing up and talks about how she got into the Spice Girls and talks about her own solo career. And it actually took me longer than anticipated. I started it in December and finished it at the start of February. So I was, yeah, a little bit slower than I had anticipated. I haven't given this a rating yet because I feel a little bit uncomfortable giving memoirs. Oh, sorry. Who Am I by Mel C is a memoir. And I do feel a little bit uncomfortable giving memoirs readings because it's somebody's life and they've taken the time to write down their life and what happens in their life. So I do have a little bit of awkwardness with that. During this, she does support an awful lot of the girls. So for example, whenever the other Spice Girls, whenever she is talking about it, events that happen, she says, oh, you can read more about this in Brutally Honest by Mel B, where she gives her account of it. And, you know, she name drops the other girls' memoirs and things that they have written about the events that happened. So you can read their point of view, which I thought was really nice. And she covers her body issues as well as her mental issues that she had, and trying to figure out who she was other than a Spice Girl, and talks about the industry at the time. That was very, very interesting. I think I will be looking at Mel B's Brutally Honest, who is another Spice Girl. I would like to read hers at some point to see how they differ. Mel C speaks very, very highly of the other girls, and so she was very, very nice in this. But she talks about the fact that she wasn't eating, and she definitely, how the music industry made her not eat and feel like she had to lose weight, and that she talks about her own mental health and how she wasn't strong enough to have male relationships at the time. The third book that I read in February was Lessons in Chemistry by Bonnie Garmus. This is a book that follows Elizabeth Zott, who is a TV personality who shows women how to cook, but does it as chemistry. She does it as, and she calls all the different aspects by their chemical name rather than by what they are. And one of the trigger warnings, there is a rape scene quite early on, which actually really shocked me. I really wasn't expecting it. It was really early on. I was like, oh my goodness, what? This is a fictional book, and I think it's women's fiction. I'm not 100% sure, but Elizabeth Zott is a chemist and scientist who ends up, her soulmate dies. And I wasn't too impressed with the soulmate and the love story in it, but he dies and leaves her with their child, so she ends up being a single mother. And so it's very feminist, and you definitely see men's point of views. I think it's set in the 60s. It was very interesting because she ends up on a cooking show on TV. It was very interesting to see the producers and the TV executives saying what women wanted, and it was very clear. I mean, women were going to be watching this show, not men, and it was definitely not what women wanted. It was definitely what the men wanted to see, and it still goes on today, I'm sure. I think I wasn't overly impressed with it. They have a dog, and you do get the dog's point of view during it, so it is quite funny because the dog is mega smart and is part of the book itself. I'm not sure I gave this a rating. I think I would give it like 3.75 or 3.5. I wasn't as impressed with it as I feel like I could have been. But the fourth book that I read this month was I'm Glad My Mother Died by Jenette McCurdy, which I'd been meaning to read for a while and finally got around to reading. This follows this is Jenette McCurdy's memoir. Jenette McCurdy was a child star who worked on iCarly and Sam and Cat, which I didn't watch either of them, and it was very easy to follow this memoir. I think she did it in a great setup. Felt like a story and a narration, and it flowed very, very well for me, and I didn't need to watch the TV show or know anything about her herself, which I really enjoyed as a reader because I didn't, and it was very easy to read and very easy to connect with. Very easy for me to connect with This talks about her, how she didn't want to get into acting at all and her mother pushed her, and it shows just how emotionally manipulative her mother was and how Jenette did not realise how manipulative her mother was until after her mother died. And it goes through quite a lot of the stuff that her mother did to her that Jenette at the time didn't realise was anything bad. She just wanted to please her mother. I mean, one of the things that really caught me was that her mother, I think she's sick. She's definitely, she could have been 8 but she was definitely a young girl, and her mother was giving her energy drinks to go to casting calls to make her more peppy. And I'm like, you're giving a child an energy drink. You do not give children energy drinks. That was one of the things that really threw me. I was like, an energy drink for a child? What? And she talks about her issues with anorexia that were sort of created by her mother, was definitely pushed by her mother to keep her looking young and looking childlike. She's so truthful in it, and she has a podcast, and it made me really want to listen to her podcast. And that's probably what the book was. It was probably her wanting you to read her podcast, listen to her podcast, and get to know more about it, because I've seen her talk about other things that aren't in the book, and I'm like, oh. So this is a memoir that I very comfortably felt like giving 5 stars. And as I said, I'm not a big one of giving memoirs themselves, but I think she laid it out so well, and I listened to it on audiobook and she nailed it. Like, it was just perfect. It was brilliantly narrated, brilliantly written, and I felt like I could understand everything that was going on. The 5th book that I read this month was The Atlas 6 by Olivie. And this, I have had this for a while because I've got the hardback and it's now in softback. I bought this because everyone was raving about it and I wasn't impressed. This is a fictional fantasy book, and it is set in a world where there are Medeans who are basically magicians, and they all have different powers. This follows 6 of the best in the world that have been picked by Atlas Blake, who has brought them to the Alexandrian Society, which is a society which holds all the knowledge in the world, and these 6 have been sent in to protect it. They stay for a year, and after a year, one of them is eliminated, and there will just be 5 that go on to be part of the society itself. And the 6 of them have to pick who doesn't make it to the next year. I know it's very hyped up on TikTok and everything else, but yes, I wasn't too impressed with it myself. I didn't really connect with it. I found it a little bit hard to understand the world building and everything that was part of it. Didn't really feel like they were likable characters. They all had very big flaws, and it was hard for me to try and figure out which characters were which and what was going on with all the characters. And it could have been that there was too many characters for me, but yeah. But this was another one off that I bought the sequel before I'd read the book, which I need to stop doing. And funny enough, the 6th book that I read was The Atlas Paradox, which is the sequel. Ooh, I forgot it wasn't the 6th book, was it? No, the 6th book that I read was Sacred Hospitality, which is a short story, only about 30 pages. And it is a prequel that is set before the Atlas 6, but it was written, I think it was a bonus story that was in the first Atlas 6. I don't think it was in this copy. Okay. No, it wasn't in this copy. I borrowed that from the library. Sacred Hospitality. And it was really, it focused more on Libby and Nico. I mean, it had all the 6 characters, but it was really focusing on their competitivity because they were in university together and because they were both, yeah, it showed more of their sort of relationship, but you did have small itty bitty sections of the other characters. So yeah, I really wasn't too impressed with it and didn't really think it was needed at all. I can't remember what I gave it. It could have been a 2-star actually. I don't think, well, it could have been probably a 2.5, like 2.75 or something. I really didn't see the point in it at all. 7th book that I read was The Atlas Paradox by Olive Blake, which is the sequel to the Atlas 6, and I went straight into it after. And this is after they pick who gets eliminated, and this is about their 2nd year in the Alexandrian Society. I really wasn't too impressed with it. I don't think I like her writing. I think that could be what it is. But it follows straight after where the last book left. I gave it 3 stars. And yeah, I'm not impressed with the series. I think I only read the 2nd book because I have it. So I was like, right, let's read it and get rid of it. But I didn't feel like anything really happened in the Atlas Paradox. I mean, I'm trying to remember, and I can remember bits and pieces, but nothing really happens at all. The villain that you had in the Atlas Paradox was pointless. It was like, yeah, yes, basically pointless. Okay, so the 8th book that I read this month was It Starts With Us with Colleen Hoover, and of course it is a new month, so of course I read a Colleen Hoover book. And this is the sequel to It Ends With Us, and it feels like it should have been the prequel to it, but of course with It Ends With Us there's an awful lot of flashback. I really like this cover. I think it's gorgeous, and the version that I have has yellow sprayed edges, which I think is gorgeous. I really, however, the book itself is not. It's blue, but I know there was lovely versions where the whole book was yellow. The hardcover was yellow, so I think it's a very, very pretty book, and I really like the prettiness. And I hate to say this, but actually I think I preferred this to It Ends With Us. I haven't really heard much about It Starts With Us, but I like that it follows more of Atlas and gives more of Atlas's story and sort of leaves Lily alone and everything. So I'm sort of happy with that. And I did enjoy it. It was a nice easy read, because It Ends With Us was really quick and easy to read, and I liked the fact that with It Starts With Us it was nice and easy too. It was nice and easy and it flowed really well, and it wasn't just a romance, there was other stuff going on. However, I could sort of tell the plot twist around, and that's the thing with Colleen Hoover. Sometimes her plot twists are a little bit, well, actually no, she's caught me off guard a few times, so, but yes, I did enjoy that. I think I gave it 4 stars. Oh, I gave it like 3.5, but I think it is more 4, but but considering the books that I have given 4 stars, I'm like, I don't think I could put it in the same category. Oh, now it is a short book. I mean, look, it's not very thick. I mean, it is quite thin. And what annoyed me a little bit during it was the fact that you got extracts from the first book, and it was like, but why? I've read the first book. Why are you giving me extracts? Yeah. And I felt like it was it probably could have been just a short story, but they definitely put it in to bluff it out a little bit, to thicken it up a bit. That was really my only big complaint with It Starts With Us. My 9th book that I read was Maybe Not by Colleen Hoover, which is the sequel, which is the short story, and it is a sequel to Maybe Someday, and it is set in between Maybe Someday and Maybe Now. And I gave this 1 star. I should have DNF'd it. It was awful. It was basically just porn. It was basically just smut. It was awful. I should have just DNF'd it, but because it was so short and it was only 3 hours, I listened to it on audiobook because I borrowed it from the library. And I should have DNF'd it. It was awful. It was really, really awful. It followed Warren. It was in Warren's point of view when Big Bridget arrives into their apartment, and it was gross. It was gross. Warren is a terrible character, and I should have DNF'd it. And I do not recommend anyone reading this if you are reading the series, the Maybe series. Do not do Maybe Not, because it is not advisable at all. It is terrible. They are horrible characters. So yes, I do not recommend this at all. So please don't read this, because it is basically porn, and it tells you the reason why Warren is watching porn, which is gross. He is a gross character. My 10th and last book that I read this month was Chain of Thorns by Cassandra Clare. I gave this 3 stars. I will be doing a review on it, a reading vlog on it, so why don't you subscribe so that you can, and hit the notification button so that you don't miss whenever I post about this, my review. So I'll tell you a little bit about the book itself. This is part of the Shadowhunters universe, and this is the last book in the Last Hour series, which follows James Herondale. And so yes, this is the last time that we meet James Herondale. To our knowledge, Cassandra Clare is finishing up the Shadowhunters universe and is not doing any more. And she has been doing it for a while. She's only got a few more books. Look at that. I mean, look at that. How gorgeous is that inside sleeve? Oh, it's so gorgeous. Well, anyway, so she will not be carrying on with. We may get a couple of different short stories, because she does do short stories for this. But yes, so this wrapped up the Last Hour series, which dealt with James Herondale's lineage and who he is related to, because he is related to a greater demon. So this series tells you more about who he's from, and there was a little bit of a twist at the end. This book left me pretty mad with Cassandra Clare for different reasons. Did I cry during it? You'll just have to wait and see what happened. And it's sad that it's the last book, but yes, I gave it 3 stars, and it is a pretty chunky read. I really didn't think I was going to get finished for my February wrap up, but I did. And so I was really pleased about that. I literally finished it at 4 p.m. on the 28th. So I'm glad that got done. So yes. So yes, if you've read any of them, please share. Please share what you've read, please share in the comment section if you've read any of these books. Even with like a little emoji or something, if you've read like It Starts With Us, you could put a flower, or a chain of thorns, you could put like a chain or something, and the atlas, you could put like an atlas, and sure, tell me your thoughts on the books that you read this month. And so yes, if you like this video, please like and comment and subscribe, and I'll see you next time. So bye, thank you.